This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out, here today with top trainer Xavier Miller over Zoom. Xavier, it's been a big weekend for yourself. Before we dive into all of that though, how is everything?
Oh, really good at the moment. Just we're where we want to be at the moment. Just getting involved in a lot of fights, title fights, and working our way back up there. So yeah, it's good, real good.
Well, we'll get straight into it. Saturday night at York Hall, Youssef Kamari with a fifth round stoppage to claim the English title. You could see post-fight in the videos how much it meant to him. How much did that mean to you as the trainer?
Yeah, it meant a lot, because I've trained a lot of fighters, but Youssef is to me the most skilled. He's the only boxer that I've ever trained to box like how I boxed because it's a Midwest boxing style and it's very, very, very difficult to teach. It is so hard. Um, you go through a lot learning it, and I've had Youssef since he was 15, and so yeah, we really, really focused on that style. It works well for him, and 20 fights in, he's done it the right way. He's fought a lot of good people, and he looks seasoned. Looked experienced, looked very relaxed, picked really good punches, and Hodgson had a really good jab and made a really good start in the first round, but Youssef made some adjustments halfway through the second round, and then he kind of took over. But yeah, it was really, really good performance, and his support is insane. He's got they were going crazy, and then they really had your call buzzing. So really happy for Youssef, but it's expected. We've been working hard to get to this point. He challenged for the same belt a few years ago, didn't get it. The majority of people thought he won it quite convincingly, to be honest with you, but he didn't get it, and we moved on, and we when I had a couple of shows on the Zone, Matchroom, went to Spain, and yeah, he's got a lot of experience. And now, to be honest with you, it's go time for Youssef. I'm interested in the Josh Padley fight. I'm interested in the winner of Flynn and Vong, is it? I'm
Yes.
interested in that. Um, and European as well. I'm interested in all these fights now for Youssef. He wants to start making some money now, and 20 fights, selling tickets. He's had to do it the hard way. He's had opportunities on big shows, but he's never been signed by a big promoter. And really, that's what they should be looking to do now. He's I've never turned down a fight for him. Whenever Eddie Hearn's put a fight forward to us, we've always taken it. So yeah, Youssef's more than ready, eager to go.
Would you say you're entering the biggest stage of Yusuf's journey yet? You mentioned it's go time. Is this the time where you let him off the leash? He's now got that English title. Is this where we see you really start to push through those levels?
Yeah, it was all about. I mean, we thought about me and Nick made a plan and thought about how we were going to build Youssef. It wasn't just random. There was certain styles that we wanted him to come up against. He was a good amateur. I mean, he had 40 amateur fights. He did win a Southern Era belt as an amateur, and it was about developing that style and making that transition and trying to make sure he'd come across every sort of different style possible, and just to make sure he's in the right space, making the right adjustments at the right time. And now he looks like he's ready. And this is what happens when you build a fighter and you do it the right way. That's how you're supposed to look last Saturday. And credit to Steve Goodwin and Goodwin Boxing. Putting the fight together. It was on a Goodwin show, and yeah, great performance and really great, really good for Youssef and his fans.
And you mentioned the names you want next. Out of all those names, which one stands out the most? Would you rather go down that road of the Josh Padley fight, who's just inked a multi-fight deal with Matchroom, coming off that big fight against Shakur Stevenson, or would it be looking at those two young guns in Jordan Finn and Cameron Vong? Which out of those two options, which one is the most appealing?
If I go on after Youssef now, I say bring me any of them. Josh Padley to me, obviously, just getting signed. There's a bit of a buzz about him now. Showed a lot of character taking that fight on short notice, but that's a fight we were looking at before he had this fight. It was one we were talking about. Those sort of names, the Flynn wrong fight, yep, no problem. Any of these sort of fights now for Youssef, he wants to be on the big stage and start making some real money. He's like I say, he's put the work in, and no one's more deserving than him. So yeah, that's what we're looking to do now is start looking at one of those names and trying to get one of these big promoters to sign him now. I mean, a lot of fighters haven't put in the time that he's put in, and they're on big platforms. It's his time. He's earned his right. He's earned his spot.
Well, we hope to see big news for Youssef soon, hopefully inking a big
Yeah,
against one of the big dogs. Uh,
and also I have to mention big shout out to Ahmed Hatim
mm.
who boxed 2 weeks before Youssef. So at the moment I've got the Southern Area champion at lightweight in Ahmed Hatim, and that was obviously a final eliminator for the English title as well. And now I've got this Youssef Kamari as an English champion. And a few weeks before that, obviously Bilal, magnificent performance. So at the moment, and Alfie Clegg was on Sky a few weeks before that. So at the moment, the gym is buzzing. Everything's working really well. Jesse Brandon, was on Matchroom recently. So this year we were talking about this is the year we're going to start going for titles, and yeah, that's what we're doing. So yeah, if I can get 5 titles by the end of the year, I'll be happy.
Well, you certainly putting that dent in and getting those titles. Just quickly, you mentioned Bilal Fawaz, a highly controversial draw against Junaid Boston. Both saying they want the rematch next. It has been ordered by the board to happen again next. Do you think that fight lands again on a Matchroom showing as a headliner potentially, is what Junaid said he wants?
Possibly. I think it was a really, really good fight first time round. Um, you know, the majority of people had Bilal winning. Bilal landing the more clean, effective, harder shots. But at times, Boston was boxing quite well. So it was a good fight, but I really had Bilal winning. I was quite surprised by the draw. I was actually quite frustrated by the draw, to be honest with you. But we've been there before. We really the only way you can guarantee victory is to stop these guys. That's why Youssef has got a slightly different mentality now, and that's why he stopped his last couple of guys. And yeah, I think Bilal, Bilal is just going to get better. He really enjoyed the whole experience. I know that Eddie would love the way Bilal is because that's the way he behaves in the gym. He's just a bit different. He's just got his own way of doing things. But I knew that the public would like to see him because he's a bit edgy, and I like his confidence, Bilal. So yeah, I'd like to see Bilal back up there again. Obviously, I'm part of his team. His head trainer is Taron, but yeah, again, another big opportunity. Get these guys on TV and start making some money. And also I've got Kate Prosper out this weekend in a final eliminator for the British title against Mikey Saki. So I've forgotten who the British champion is, but I know he signed to Queensborough. I've had a quick look at him. I think Kay beats him. So, but we've just got to concentrate on this weekend. If he gets through this weekend, then that's what we're looking at next. His last big fight was Sandor Martin. So you really be looking to do something this weekend and get back in the big stage. He's 40 now. He just wants one more big shot. So the good thing he has been in there with Sandor. He has won an English title. He has defended it, and so he is known. So that does help. So maybe he can get one of those late call ups. He would deserve it.
Well, a massive, massive time for the gym. I just want to pick your brains on a few other topics in the boxing world at the moment. I guess we'll start off. We had the news around this time last week. I'd like to say that Dillian Whyte versus Joyce will now not be happening. Um,
Mm.
First of all, just gutted to see that we won't be getting treated to a little heavyweight blockbuster like that.
I think it's the ideal, perfect fight for Dillian at this stage. I think it would have been a great fight. I was really looking forward to it. It's again one of those freak accidents. It happens, but yeah, I don't think it'd be too long till he's back. Well, he's probably back in training already anyway. But yeah, I think that fight will come around again anyway. I can see it.
What do you make of the replacement for Dillian Whyte and Filip Hrgovic being the supposed name stepping in against Joyce now?
I don't understand why it just couldn't be that particular fight just couldn't be rescheduled. To be honest with you, that's a good fight. It's an ideal fight for both. But yeah, you can't knock that replacement. Hrgovic, just because he lost to Dubois doesn't mean he's not a good fighter. He is good. He's on a good run as well. So yeah, and he's going to want to get back in the mix. So again, that's a good fight. It's a good fight. It's hard to pick a winner out of those two. If Hrgovic has obviously been given the time to have a full camp, I can't remember what date the fight is and how well prepared he is. But the way boxing is now, you don't seem to get more. You don't seem to get a full camp anyway. You're getting offered so much money. It's just a case of you just being a body and being ready. So yeah, interesting one. Interesting one.
So the fight is just under a month away now. I think April
Yeah, you
5th,
see?
that date.
Mm,
Who do you, I know you say you can't pick a winner, but who do you make the favourite out of the two?
it's so hard because, Joyce is not on the best run, and Hrgovic would have been coming off a loss. So, and I didn't think he looked good against Dempsey McKean, to be honest with you. I didn't think he looked good at all. I was there. I was at that fight. So I don't know. I think it's a 50-50. Couldn't pick a winner at this stage. If I had to pick someone, I'd probably slightly favour Hrgovic. If he's had more than the month to get ready for this fight, if he was already in training for another fight, then yes. If he's only had the month and he's just getting ready now, I'd favour Joyce.
You mentioned how, we're not seeing a lot of fighters have the camps now and opportunities just popping up left, right, centre for large sums of money, obviously hinting towards Martin Bakole and Josh Padley taking those short notice fights. I think the one that I just want to quickly pick your brains on is that Bakole situation where it sat there on a Thursday night, the press conference is about to go down, and all our phones start buzzing that Daniel Dubois is ill, he's being examined by doctors, and replacements are being looked at. And Bakole wasn't a name on the list of those fighters that they were supposedly looking to replace Daniel Dubois.
Mm,
What did you make of that whole fiasco on that Thursday evening within 3 hours going from Daniel Dubois to Martin Bakole?
no, didn't like the sound of it at all because of how Bakoli looked. He just didn't look like he'd been in the gym, to be honest with you. I know everybody was raving, oh, it's a really good replacement because of the name. That's all you did fight was the name. You didn't really fight that fighter. So, nah, it wasn't. I don't think it was a good look personally. I'm happy for Martin Bakoli because honestly, like, you get to make that kind of money. You got to take it. He's not one of these heavyweights that's been involved in really, really big fights, um, apart from the Anderson fight. So he didn't really have much of a choice. But the only thing that shocked me was when he did get caught with the first shot. It was kind of signaling that it didn't do anything to him, and really, he's been around boxing long enough. Just stay switched on. Because he just seemed to switch off for that moment. Because before that, I think he landed an uppercut, and it did seem to have a slight effect on Parker. Bacody's got a lot of natural talent, so he's a decent heavyweight. But yeah, hopefully, no ill effects. It wasn't a long, drawn out beating. It's one of those ones that if it's going to happen to your fighter, you would really prefer for it to happen early rather than late. Taking a long beating for like over like 8, 9 rounds and getting knocked out late is not good for your career. Um, but yeah, hopefully he can come back and is it a Jogbo he's going to be fighting?
Yes, that would
Definitely.
meant to be an IBF eliminator, which kind of leads me into my next question is do you feel,
Mm.
apart from losing the fight on that IBF final eliminator, do you feel he loses that status as the bogeyman of the heavyweight division?
I mean, you definitely can't unsee what you've seen, that's for sure. But I think the heavyweight division is unique as one fight and you're straight back in, one win and you're straight back in. Um, yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I think in the next 12 months we're going to be talking about him back in the top 5, 6 heavyweights, and maybe we can get a rematch with Parker. I'd like to see a fit version of Bakoli v Parker.
How do you see a fit version of Bakole doing against Joseph Parker?
I've got Bakoli winning. I've got Bakoli beating him.
Do you believe Bakole at full fitness would stop Joseph Parker?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I
What
do. At this stage in Parker's career, I do. I think Parker's on a decent run, but it's flattering. I mean, Wilder wasn't really Wilder anymore. He did really well in the Zhang fight, but he was hurt a few times in that fight, and yeah, it's like these heavyweights they win one, lose one at the moment. So I don't know. It's hard to say, but yeah, I slightly favour Colin.
Another big talking point of with Daniel Dubois pulling out, if you listen to a lot of Eddie Hearn's interviews and talks with the media, he said the whole build up, whenever getting asked about AJ, is we'll see what happens with Dubois Parker and then we'll decide Anthony Joshua's next move. We never saw Dubois versus Parker. But just before I start picking your brains on Usyk versus Dubois, as that's now a rumored fight, who do you want to see Anthony Joshua face next?
Mm, it's a good question. I haven't thought about that for a long time. I think a Parker rematch looks good. We all, I mean, still want to see White, Joshua two, um, White, Chisora three. Uh, yeah, Joshua. Yeah, there's still a few guys out there. I think Hrgovic is a good comeback fight for him. You see, I would have picked him if he hadn't been, put in the mix and against Joyce. So I would probably would have said, yeah, that would have been a good opponent from Hrgovic. But now, not sure. But yeah, Parker. There's so many now. You can just. I mean, Zhang still. I mean, he's just come for loss, but there's a lot of guys you can get in with. Um, was it Abacad? I can't remember the
Magic
guy's name.
Caballo.
Yeah, he's on a good run. Joshua in with him. I'm sure that he's close to being in some sort of a final eliminator for one of those belts, Caballero. So maybe that could fast track Joshua straight back to a title fight. There's a lot of different options for Joshua. He's still got a lot to offer.
You mentioned obviously the Parker rematch being probably the fight you want to see most. Do you feel they could use that as kind of a eliminator on, we know what the Saudis do with putting these big cards on. You could go with Joshua Parker as the chief support, leading on to Usyk Dubois main event, and then the two winners of that fight face off.
I don't know if I'm ever going to see Joshua as a co-main event. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. He's just a big name. You just don't see that with him. But I I think it's actually a good idea. I think that would, that he needs that hunger back, and to have him as a co-main event, I think it'd be a good thing for Joshua. Me personally, I think it's a good idea, and work your way back up. Why not? Sounds good.
You mentioned Ajit Kabayel coming off a big win over Zhang now holding that WBC
Mm.
interim title. Reports have started coming out recently that he's rumored to face Deontay Wilder next as Deontay Wilder tries to navigate his way back to the top of the heavyweight division. What do you make of Wilder looking at a return?
It's a very bad idea. I think Wilder needs two or even three soft touches before you entertain that idea. I don't even think of Wilder in the mix with any of those guys from what I saw against Joseph Parker. I think you're going to put him in real danger. He needs a couple of real confidence boosters, and you're not going to gain nothing from beating this version of Deontay Wilder. To be honest with you, like there's other names at the moment out there that are going to give you a better test really than this version of Deontay Wilder.
Do you feel because of the name and the value that Deontay Wilder carries, while we sit here and say he needs those soft touches, he won't get them because of that star power that he does bring?
That's why you should build him at home in Alabama. Have a couple of fights there. I actually think Jared Anderson will be a good fight for Wilder at this stage in Alabama. They both need a comeback fight. Wilder's got the experience. I don't view Jared Anderson as one of the top heavyweights personally. I don't see him in the top 10. So that sort of fight to me would be good for Wilder. He needs those kind of fights.
Well, we mentioned Usyk versus Dubois too, potentially
Oh
getting
yeah.
made. It does seem those are the next steps now. Do you feel, first of all, going into this fight, if this is next, Daniel Dubois can take confidence and Don Charles can take confidence from that first fight in landing the highly controversial body shot?
I mean, first of all, congratulations to Don Charles, trainer of the year. Um, Overdue, well deserved. He's probably my closest friend in boxing. Outside of my gym. So I'm really happy for him. Anytime he's got any fighter fighting anybody, always siding with Don Charles and his fighters. But Usyk is a different puzzle. Um, that shot was legal, and to me, that's the best chance to be Usyk is to catch him with a shot like that. But in terms of being on points or outboxing him, you're getting closer to it because he's getting older, getting a bit slower. Um, but he seems to know when to pull away, especially championship rounds. Daniel needs to catch him with one shot. That's how I see him maybe being victorious. But Usyk is he's special, and he's proved that over the last God knows how many years at two different weights. And for him to come up the weights and do that to all these heavyweights, outstanding.
What do you feel Daniel needs to do in order to catch Usyk with that one shot? Do you feel there's a certain trap that he could possibly set in order to bait Usyk into something in order to deliver that shot?
I think it's fair to say that one of the heavyweights that's had the most success against Usyk was Derek. Applying a lot of pressure, being physical. Um, I don't see Daniel as that kind of fighter. He's more like a mid-range sort of fighter that can apply pressure. He's not really the kind of sit on your chest like that, like what Derek can do. But adopting some of those sort of tactics probably would help. You've got to lean on these guys. I mean, but you see, look how big Tyson Fury is, and he tried to lean on him. It didn't make a difference. He's just so good at making adjustments. So you see, that's the problem. And then you've got to make an adjustment to counteract what he's doing, and you've got to kind of do that on the fly consistently. Um, and these current heavyweights don't seem to be able to do that as well as the heavyweights from like the 90s, 80s, and 90s. But it'd be interesting. I think Usyk, to me personally, I think he needs to retire. I can see the slippage. I can see him slowing down, and all these great fighters, and not just heavyweights, seem to always stay one fight too long. Lennox got out at the right time because if he had continued, if he had a rematch with Klitschko, he would have lost. So he knew that he wasn't the same fighter anymore. I think Usyk and his team need to look at his last two or three fights and decide whether it's Tyson Fury because he's just that competitive, or that maybe they are slowing down. And yeah, you got to pick the right time. But hopefully for Daniel, it'll be the right time for him.
You mentioned picking the right time to leave the sport and hang the gloves up. Do you feel with this current landscape of the heavyweight division and how much money we're seeing invested into the heavyweights now, we're not going to see fighters call it when they should because they know there's another big payday after just one big win?
Well, the sad part is a lot of fighters. It's the clientele and the team they have around them that encourage them to carry on because they're all getting something out of it. A couple of times I've had to tell fighters it's best to retire. They didn't want to talk to me, but it was for their own good. I didn't want to see them get hurt, and I can see they're not the same boxer anymore. And there's a good current crop of heavyweights on the up. Some exciting ones: Jamie TKV, Adelaide, Atama. There's some good guys coming up. I've got my own heavyweight looking in, Ergol Elazad. So you don't want to be around and fighting those kind of guys because you know they're the younger version of you, and you don't need that at this stage. I think you should be fighting the guys in and around your own sort of era. So yeah, it's that's the sad part of boxing. I thought that with Muhammad Ali as well. That a lot of people are benefiting from him continuing to box. So then they would encourage it, and it's not right, but it happens in boxing, unfortunately.
Just last few from me now. We have seen recently, I know you're not a fan of the fight, but the Eubank Jr. Ben press tour,
Mm,
which resulted in Conor Benn getting slapped by an egg from Chris
mm.
Eubank Jr. Obviously, yourself in the position of not already being a fan of the fight, before seeing that, how did that make you feel seeing that?
I think it's good promotion. It's the fight is even bigger than what I thought it would be. In terms of how quickly the tickets sold out, and social media going crazy about the fight. But it's the fight, just one guy is just too small. The other guy is just too big, and then having to drain himself back to 160 when he hasn't boxed at that weight for a long time. That's a bad idea when you get older. It doesn't go. It just doesn't work. It hasn't really worked previously. It didn't work for Roy Jones. Um, these it didn't work for De La Hoya when he tried to go back down to welterweight to fight Manny Pacquiao. You look like a shell of yourself, and I hope that doesn't happen to Chris. But if Chris is even 70% of what he was, he's far too big for Ben. If he is really gone and shot, then yeah, he has a very good chance because he's the guy that can eat comfortably. He doesn't have to pull himself down to make weight. I look at it the same as I look at obviously the Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia fight. A lot of people just don't understand. One guy planned not to make weight, and one guy was actually working hard to make the weight. It's not a fair fight. and that's without even talking about the accusations about the PEDs. You can when two fighters get in the ring, if they both had a full training camp and they both brought themselves down to make weight, you're that 24 hours is never going to be enough. But at least you've got two fighters that are depleted but on an even playing field. That's a dangerous game that Ryan was playing. He had no intention of fighting for that belt or making that weight. You could see that with all the antics. And you've got a shredded version of Devin on the scales, and a guy who's coming just, yeah, I'll just pay the fine. It's not a fair fight. When they both go away and go to rehydrate, you've got Devin's got so much more to make up, and Ryan's already there. And a lot of people don't understand that in boxing. They're applauding, these antics from Ryan because they don't understand how this thing works. And it's just like, Ben is in a better position, even though he's coming up so many weights. It's better than having to deplete yourself. So that's the reason why I don't like the fight. I like Ben. I've met him multiple times at the Matchroom gym. He's a good kid. I saw him the other day when Bilal was fighting Boston. He was there. Um, and Chris, I'm a fan of Chris. He always gives everything in the ring. So it's not anything personal about the guys. It's just that I just don't like the fight and how it's being pushed. They're too. There's so much weight between them. It's not a fight that should happen. I think the Harlem fight would have been more realistic for Conor Benn. I think Harlem, Eubank, and Conor Benn would have been a good fight. There's like one weight between them, or maybe they're both at the same weight now. That would have made sense to me. But this fight, I just hope nothing bad happens.
You mentioned obviously the weight's a big talking point throughout the whole build-up since this fight was first announced. Has been the rehydration clause. Ben Shalom revealed to my colleague Eamon Khan in an interview last week that the rehydration second day weigh-in will be early in the morning, believed to be before 10 o'clock in the morning. Do you feel that's enough time on the fight day for Chris to put weight back on from after 10 a.m.?
Even though you put back on the weight, it's what you've lost during camp. It's not enough time to put it back. He's never going to be what he would want to be in that fight, or where he was at 168. It's not going to happen. But you just have to hope that obviously they've got a good plan of how to get down to the weight, and they've left themselves enough time so it's not so the whole training camp is not a weight making training camp. That's what you have to hope for. But yeah, this fight makes me nervous. I just don't want to see anyone get hurt because realistically, Ben should not be able to fight Eubank at that weight. If they were both at the weight that they wanted to be at, the fight's just not even, is it? It's not an even playing field, that fight. So, they've had to do something to even it up. And, as a coach, knowing what fighters look like when they bore themselves down, no, I'm not a fan of it.
Well, Xavier, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time as always. It's always good to catch up, and we look forward to speaking again soon. Cheers.
And I'll see you in the month. We've got a couple of big shows to go to, so we'll catch up.
Exactly, absolutely, Javier. See you there, my friend.
All right, take care, brother. See you soon.